I done did it again. Hello, my fam. Perez Hilton here, the queen of all media, the original influencer, and your number one source for everything It Ends With Us saga. I have been covering the beast that is this story since last August, and I'm mentioned in 2 of the lawsuits. And today, Betty Buzzkill mentioned me in a letter that her lawyers just sent to Judge Lyman. But first, a step back. As I previously told you, the expert in taking zero accountability asked the judge for an extra layer of protection. Even though Baldoni and her camp had agreed to a basic protective order, that's not good enough for the hair care professional. The oversharer is asking the judge to grant an attorney's eyes only layer of extra confidential court materials. And earlier today, Baldoni's lawyers sent a letter to the judge saying they don't think that is necessary, and that the oversharer is trying to all of a sudden now be so secretive and discreet when she's been playing things out in the media, they allege. Well, Team Delulu has now sent their own letter to the judge just moments ago, and I was mentioned in that. It says, "Dear Judge Lyman, we respectfully file this short reply to address 3 discrete points that the Wayfarer parties never raised during the parties' conferrals and instead raised for the first time in their opposition to the proposed protective order. First, the Wayfarer parties in their opposition argued that an AEO, Attorney's Eyes Only designation, is not necessary because of the following provision in the model protective order. Quote, any party who requests additional limits on disclosure, such as attorney's eyes only in extraordinary circumstances, may at any time prior to the trial of this action serve upon counsel for the receiving party a written notice stating with particularity the grounds for the request. Model PO. But the model PO defines parties or parties as those who are parties to this action. At 1, which does not reference third parties or expressly apply its process to them. Even if it did, requiring third parties to confer with counsel for multiple parties in order to justify withholding highly personal and sensitive materials from the parties, but not their counsel, would place an unfair burden on them. Oh God, so much legalese. Let's get to the good stuff after this. I'm reading this in chronological order from the beginning to the end of the letter. The Wayfarer parties in their opposition do not make any reference to third parties, including to address or challenge the defined specific and serious injury that will occur and already has occurred in the absence of providing sufficient protections. The opposition ignores that the proposed PO would extend the right to designate materials as attorney's eyes only to parties and third parties alike, some of whom already have faced online harassment, threats, and attempted intimidation. Counsel for the Wayfarer parties recently publicly stated in an interview with TMZ that Wayfarer, Justin, and their representatives have no ill will nor vendetta against anyone who speaks up in any circumstance and have firsthand experience with and empathy for the struggles of going against incredibly powerful individuals in pursuit of the truth. The moving parties, what they're calling themselves, respectfully suggest that the Wayfarer parties can actualize those professed goals, that is, facilitate the pursuit of the truth and to empower third parties, including victims of sexual harassment, to stand up to incredibly powerful individuals by providing third parties with a way to ensure that their personal and sensitive information is accessible only to attorneys who are bound by the rules and ethics of this court and the legal profession. That little bit there had Ryan Reynolds written all over it. Remember in the amended lawsuit from the uncredited director of It Ends With Us? They used his own words against him so much. And they're doing it again right here, right now. Given the unrebutted, quote, defined, specific, and serious injury at stake, there is good cause to permit parties and third parties to rely on an attorney's eyes only designation in the first instance, while allowing any party to object to any such designations as both the model and proposed protective order contemplate. Second, it is difficult to square the process that paragraph 9 in the model PO contemplates with the Wayfarer party's position as to attorney's eyes only designations. Paragraph 9 of the model protective order requires that the parties confer about the use of the attorney's eyes only designation, and if they cannot reach agreement, seek relief from the court. Okay, we're going to skip through a lot of this. Given the Wayfarer party's position that Ms. Lively lacks a good faith belief that there is any information that would violate her privacy rights because she has chosen to file a lawsuit detailing her so-called harassment, Ms. Lively attempted to resolve her concerns about an unsafe work environment privately and directly with Mr. Baldoni, Mr. Heath Wayfarer, and others, and only filed a legal complaint after the defendants launched the retaliatory smear campaign detailed in Ms. Lively's amended complaint. Leaving aside the callous disregard and disrespect for a woman advocating for the most basic workplace protections against sexual harassment, the Wayfarer party's position that a woman who speaks up against sexual harassment has somehow waived any and all privacy interests shows the futility of future conferral. The inevitable byproduct of the Wayfarer party's position will be a massive waste of party and judicial resources as parties and potentially third parties seek to convince counsel for the Wayfarer parties that women do not forfeit all of their privacy interests simply because they have spoken out or intend to speak out against the Wayfarer parties. All right, skipping through some of this other stuff. Certain online content creators who frequently parrot the Wayfarer party's line, at least one of whom just so happens to be a client of Wayfarer counsel Brian Friedman, that's me, whom I've told you, have used similar misleading accusations. E.g., Perez Hilton, then the headline from my website, Blake Lively asks judge for stronger protective order to keep Justin Baldoni suit details private after receiving violent messages. What was wrong in that? What was wrong in that? Blake Lively asks judge for stronger protective order to keep Justin Baldoni's suit details private after receiving violent messages. There's nothing wrong with that. That's me. They include a link to my website. Thank you. They particularly took issue with this one sentence. They are really trying to keep some evidence out of the public eye, it would seem. Yeah, that's accurate. They are really trying to keep some evidence out of the public eye, it would seem. Yeah, it would seem so. And then they say, for the reasons articulated in the motion in search of proposed protective order, which the Wayfarer parties largely fail to address and therefore concede, good cause exists to adopt the proposed protective order. Thank you for the shout out. And I don't even have an opinion as to whether the judge should grant this request or not. I think for me, it all depends on what's the legal precedent. What would happen in another similar case? That's the answer I think the judge should give. But thank you again. And thoughts on all that we have discussed in this video? Let's get to it in the comments section. I am a player in all of this as well, and I love it. They're all paying attention. You're watching me right now, You're watching me right now.